right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, all you magnificent melon heads. Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for a new week. Today is December 9th, 2024, and a lot has happened in the world since just Friday afternoon. This is one of those mornings, guys, where it's going to be hard to talk about everything going on in the world. I've tried to distill this down a little bit. Let's just get right into it. Syria, the regime of President Bashar Al-Assad, the bloodthirsty dictator who's been running that country for decades, has fallen. It's fallen to a series of rebel groups. You've got this group HTN or HTS. I forget what the letters are. It's like basically a rebrand of Al-Qaeda. They've teamed up with Turkey, our NATO ally. Yeah, you heard that right. They're coming down from the one side, assisted by Turkey. Then you've got the Kurds in the other part of Syria, assisted by, us, our military. They're coming from the other direction. Assad has now fled Syria. His plane crashed taking off from Damascus Friday night. Everybody thought he was dead. Turns out, nope, he's alive in Russia with his family. But the regime has fallen now. The country is basically in a power vacuum, and you've got all these rival factions that will now be vying for control of the country. And, I have no love for Assad. He was a murderer. He was a tyrant. I think we're going to learn things about him. We already know a lot about him, enough for history to pass judgment, but I think we're going to learn a lot more about him in the coming days when we uncover exactly what he's been doing in that place, like secret prisons underground and things like that are already starting to come to life. But now we're kind of into that, Iraq post-Hussein or Libya post-Gaddafi, where what are we going to be left with? What's going to come out of this? You had last night, you had the U.S. was striking ISIS targets in Syria. We haven't heard ISIS in a while. You had Israel was seizing some land. They're calling it a buffer zone to restore stability. Who knows what's going to come out of this part of the world? It's a freaking mess. But I can tell you who had United States providing close air support for Al-Qaeda on their 2020s bingo card, because that's pretty much what's happening. And, look, our NATO ally Turkey teaming up with this group that's like a rebranded Al-Qaeda. The reason why that's going on is because Turkey really hates the Kurds. Turkey calls the Kurds a terrorist organization. Turkey has their own problem with Kurdish uprising in their territory. The Kurds are pretty much slaughtered anywhere in the world they try to go, in Syria and Iraq and in Turkey. And so what's going to happen now? Are we going to be fighting a proxy war with our own freaking ally in Syria? I don't know, guys. It's messy. Let's just put it that way. It is very messy what's going on in Syria. But this is a big defeat for the Russians, who have basically lost one of their centers of power projection in the Middle East. And now we just got to wonder what kind of mess is going to be left behind. Also, we have got a lot of news coming out elsewhere in the world. Look, the government in France has collapsed over a spending dispute. The same thing happened in Germany. You had the impeachment vote of this president in South Korea, where he had a failed coup attempt that Western media was afraid to call a coup because he's one of their guys. They like him. So when he does a coup, they call it a state of emergency was declared, a martial law. It was a military overthrow of a government, any way you look at it. There's a lot happening in the world, guys. All I can tell you is everything that I'm hearing, all of these stories, you can distill it down to more money printing and more easy money is coming, because anytime the idiots in charge in this world encounter any crisis like this, Zerp and Burr is always the answer that comes. So that's what's coming down the pike. Now, also, we got some things going on in the world of Bitcoin this morning. You got Riot is trying to pull a Michael Saylor. They're issuing secured notes that are convertible to stock and buying Bitcoin with the proceeds, although it's not working so well for Riot this morning. Their stock is down. You have El Salvador is actually easing off on some of their Bitcoin policy in order to get at a $1.3 billion loan from the IMF. El Salvador is making the mandatory legal tender story where all the businesses in El Salvador have to accept Bitcoin. Well, the terms of this IMF loan that they're taking, they're going to make that optional from now on. So it seems El Salvador is backing away from their diehard adoption of Bitcoin a little bit in order to get their hands on some IMF money. We've got China is going after Nvidia this morning. It has to do with the Mellanox deal from 2020. China is saying Nvidia is in violation of a monopoly rule. Now, we've got this antitrust they're not antitrust, these export controls going on with Nvidia here in the States. Nvidia is not supposed to be selling their advanced chips into China. Well, they're doing it anyway. They're just using proxies. But this shouldn't be that big of a deal for Nvidia because they're not supposed to be selling their big data center servers into this country. But Nvidia does have a lot of other assets in China, and they do other business there. So this is material to the company. That stock is down a couple of percent this morning. It's the latest salvo in an ongoing trade war. China is also talking about more stimulus this morning. There was some pretty crazy Keynesian word salad coming out of the CCP this morning. Wait till you hear this phrase. It's amazing how verbose and how much vocabulary the Chinese will go through to avoid saying Zerpenber, which is really what it comes down to. They're going to print money and lower rates. You've got a bureaucrat was just put in charge at the Indian Central Bank. That's wonderful. Their finance minister will be taking over at their central bank. That's like putting Janet Yellen back in charge at the Fed. Gee, what do you think he's going to do? If you said Zerpenber, then you're paying attention. Congratulations. And in another crazy story this morning, Supermicro Computer, one of the biggest frauds on Wall Street these days, they have been granted an extension by the NASDAQ. Why? I don't know. And I'm sure one day NASDAQ is going to have to answer for this in court when they get sued for a failure to police crime and fraud in their midst. But the NASDAQ has granted an extension to Supermicro to file their 10Q and their 10K, which is now several months late because their auditor, Ernst & Young, quit and basically said these guys are crooks. We don't trust them. Well, Supermicro now has until February 25th to file those documents that they should have filed in freaking August. And the stock is rallying. People will buy this stock on anything. Seriously, like some guy in the street opens up his jacket. Is like, hey, you want to buy some Supermicro stock? I got them real cheap. They fell off a truck. This market will buy it no matter what. No questions asked. And last but not least, in a crazy story that not quite national news yet, but it will be very soon, there is a fleet of large drones that nobody knows where they're coming from, operating all over New Jersey right now. And now they're in Pennsylvania and they're in New York and they're supposedly not ours. And I'm not talking about little quadcopters, the little things you can get from, not Radio Shack, not the little things you can get on Amazon. These things are 15 feet across. They're the size of cars. Some of them are being described as fixed wing aircraft. And the government doesn't know where they're coming from. At least they're telling us they don't know where they're coming from. And they're all over the state of New Jersey. They're also over New York. And now they're over Pennsylvania. They're probably going to be over my house pretty soon. What the hell is going on, guys? These things are huge. These drones are not cheap, which means whoever's doing this has very deep pockets, like state actor deep pockets. And the government is saying it's not them, which means, distill this down to its base level, you have what appears to be a state actor operating a large fleet of drones in the United States airspace, and our government appears unable to do anything about it. Now, maybe I'm being a little doomy here, but what the hell? What is going on in this world, guys? We got a lot to talk about. It's time to shrink my big melon of a head, and let's see what's going on in this world. Get your 2020s bingo cards out, folks. It's one of those days. And hit that like button while you're at it. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and come have your coffee with the melon heads because we do this every morning. Right now, the S&P 500 is down 6 points, 0.1% lower, not too deep in the red, but stock's a little bit lower here. The Dow is up a little bit here, 25 points, 0.05% to the upside. And the NASDAQ is down about 0.2%, off by about 46 points this morning. So you got a mixed bag in stocks here, not a lot of movement in either direction. We've got a dollar making its way lower here, back below 106. We haven't seen a 105 handle in a while. 17 basis points lower for the Dixie here at 105.88. Looking over at the bond market, we've got mostly higher bond yields this morning. The 30-year Treasury, 4.366. That's up 3.5 points. The 10 years at 4.179, also up 3 points. The 2 years at 4.12, up 2 points and change. And the 1 month is down a fraction of a point at 4.441. Looking over at the commodities board, we got a lot of green this morning. I think that weaker dollar is probably helping things out here. Gold is sharply higher by $32, $2,665 an ounce for spot gold. That's up by 1.25%. Spot silver is looking great this morning. By the way, shout out to Bob Coleman, man. He is on the money once again. He called this one a couple of days ago. Spot silver, $32.06. That's up $1.08 this morning, almost $1.09, 3.5% higher. We will have Bob Coleman coming on the channel tomorrow to talk about this. Meanwhile, we've got copper is up by 2%, platinum's up almost 3%, palladium is up by 3%, and even WTI crude is up here. January futures 68.39, that's higher by $1.20 or about 1.75%. So commodities are having a pretty good day. Commodities, except for Bitcoin, that is, we're back below 100,000 on Bitcoin here at $99,121 as priced on Coinbase. That's about $2,000 lower versus a day ago. And we have a couple of stories about Bitcoin going on this morning. First of all, this is on X here. Riot has announced that they're proposing a private offering of $500 million of convertible senior notes. The net proceeds from this offering to be used primarily to acquire Bitcoin and for general corporate purposes. So they're trying to pull a Michael Saylor, a MicroStrategy here. They're going after that infinite money glitch where you take out debt or issue shares, use that to buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin goes higher. It drives your share price higher. Rinse, repeat. Infinite money glitch. Not really working out so well for Riot this morning, though. That stock is down 5.4%, trading at $12.25. So it looks like they forgot Saylor's special sauce with whatever they're trying to do with their infinite money glitch this morning. And El Salvador's in the news as well. El Salvador to narrow Bitcoin laws in order to secure a $1.3 billion loan from the IMF. El Salvador is set to narrow the scope of its Bitcoin policy in order to secure a $1.3 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund, according to a Monday report in the Financial Times, citing sources close to the situation. I wonder if he's related to that person, that guy familiar with the matter. Sounds familiar. The country is close to reaching an agreement with the IMF on the loan program, which requires modification to its Bitcoin legal tender law and deficit reductions. Under the proposed terms, El Salvador's government would change the legal requirement that mandates businesses accept Bitcoin as payment, making it optional instead. The government would also commit to reducing its budget deficit by 3.5% of GDP over 3 years through spending cuts and tax increases, while boosting reserves from $11 billion to $15 billion. The deal could be finalized within 2 to 3 weeks and would potentially unlock an additional $2 billion in lending from the World Bank and Inter-American Development Bank over the coming years, the report noted. So it seems El Salvador not quite as gung-ho about Bitcoin when they have $1.3 billion in money from the IMF up for grabs. Now, let's talk about the big story this morning, guys. This is all over the news all weekend. This was going on. Assad's fall after 24-year rule creates a power vacuum in the Middle East. And power vacuum in the Middle East, that is very much a 2020s bingo kind of thing there. You never, as much as the Middle East is renowned for violent, brutal dictators, power vacuums in the Middle East tend to be even worse, if you can believe it. As Bashar Al-Assad fled to Moscow, the looters started raiding the presidential palace and people took to the streets of Damascus to celebrate his demise. The Syrian president had tried to hang on until the bitter end, still desperately sending an SOS to anyone who would listen, including Donald Trump. The despot had run out of the road. The world is still grasping the speed of events in recent days and the collapse of a ruling dynasty that laid waste to the country during a catastrophic civil war. But the implications are also quickly sinking in, and not least of which the prospect of more upheaval and violence as groups tussle for control. Now, guys, the whole Syrian civil war was basically what stopped the Arab Spring dead in its tracks back in, we're talking over 10 years ago here. It was the Syrian civil war that pretty much stopped it from spreading. It never really ended. It was brutal. It led to this huge wave of migration into Europe. We saw chemical weapons used on civilian populations. We saw the Russian military moving in, trying to project power into the Middle East. It was a total mess. Well, the Assad regime has now fallen, but what is going to take its place? And we're going to go past all this history. And guys, we could talk for hours about Syria and the various factions involved and get nowhere. But there's one thing you need to keep in mind, and that is this group that our ally Turkey is supporting right now, this HTS group. The U.S. designates the rebel group HTS, which formed an alliance with Al-Qaeda more than a decade ago, as a terrorist organization. HTS has since sought to project itself as a force for unity, but many U.S. and Middle Eastern officials are doubtful. Even the leader of this outfit, HTS, he was a former member of Al-Qaeda in Iraq who was previously detained by our troops there. Look, maybe they rebranded. Hey, we're not Al-Qaeda anymore. Now we're HTS. We're not Facebook. We're Meta. Okay, it's a new name. We call ourselves something different. Sorry about that whole 9/11 thing and killing all the people. Can we be friends now? Maybe that's a genuine effort. Maybe there really is going to be some unity, or maybe this is just the latest CF in a long line of CFs coming out of this part of the world. But be vigilant, guys. Like, I shed no tears for Assad. Good riddance. The world is better off without him, but let's not put another one in his place. Now we've got China vows more proactive fiscal stimulus measures, moderately looser monetary policy. In other words, Zerpenber. And you just got to look at some of the language that China is using here. Is this the right one? Yeah, this is the right story. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. China's leaders on Monday pledged more proactive fiscal measures and moderately looser monetary policy next year to boost domestic consumption, according to an official readout of a key policy meeting that outlined upcoming economic priorities. So look, guys, more proactive fiscal measures. We're going to print more money and moderately looser policy. In other words, the central bank is going to lower rates and inject liquidity in order to enable that spending. This is Zerpenber, any way you look at it. Now, listen to this sentence here. The Politburo, a top decision-making body led by President Xi Jinping, said it will stabilize property and stock markets while strengthening the unconventional counter-cyclical adjustment, the Communist Party's CNBC translated readout said. And I read this over a couple of times, and I had to read this to figure out just what the hell are they saying here. All right. They will stabilize the property and stock markets. We're going to print money. We're going to buy property, and we're going to buy stocks. That's what they're saying. We're going to stabilize it. We're going to print money and buy these things. We're going to inflate. Stabilize property and stock markets while strengthening the unconventional counter-cyclical adjustment. And I don't know exactly what a unconventional counter-cyclical adjustment is, but the way I interpret that is we have a natural boom-bust cycle in the economy, and if we're counter-cyclical, they want to counter the bust. And how do you counter a bust if you're a Keynesian or a modern monetary theory idiot? Well, you print money and you inject it into the economy. Guys, all this word salad, all this stuff that they're saying, it's just more easy money. They come up with 100 different ways to say it. But easy money is the root of pretty much all the problems that are facing society right now. And every time we encounter these problems, the answer is always more easy money. I'm beginning to think these two things might be related. And then India says, hold my beer. India appoints Princeton-educated Malhotra to lead the central bank. And I don't know who this Malhotra guy is. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name, but I'm not too optimistic. India appointed Sanjay Malhotra, a career bureaucrat, as the new governor of the nation's central bank, ending weeks of speculation over who would helm monetary policy in the world's fastest growing economy. The new governor will take charge of the Reserve Bank of India for a 3-year term from December 11th, according to a government statement on Monday. He succeeds somebody I'm not even going to try to pronounce, who had been the head of the RBI since 2018. Now, Malhotra, currently serving as Revenue Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, has more than 3 decades of experience in public policy with expertise in areas such as power, finance, and taxation. He was the revenue secretary at the Ministry of Finance. He's basically the Janet Yellen over there. And again, one of the biggest problems in the States over the last few years is we have been blurring the line between the Treasury and the central bank, basically monetizing deficit spending, making inflation institutionalized policy. They're doing the same thing here over in India. Once again, guys, to a hammer, everything looks like nails. They're just going to print more money. You can see it here. And if you don't believe me, look at the next paragraph here. The new governor takes charge at a time when the central bank is in a tough spot. There is rising pressure on the Royal Bank or the Reserve Bank of India to cut interest rates as growth slowed down to a 7/4 point to a 7/4 low of 5.4% in the July to September period. So already there's pressure on this guy to lower rates. More easy money is coming to India. It's coming to China. It's coming to the U.S. And we've got China targets Nvidia for potential brief of monopoly law. Look, this is probably just another tit for tat in the ongoing trade war between the U.S. and China, but this could potentially be a big deal for U.S. stocks here. China has opened a probe into Nvidia over suspicions that the U.S. chipmaker broke anti-monopoly laws around a landmark 2020 deal, taking aim at the AI heavyweight as Washington ramps up sanctions. The State Administration for Market Regulation opened an investigation into the company's recent behavior, as well as the circumstances surrounding the acquisition of Mellanox Technologies. China's Central Television said in a report on Monday, Beijing gave approval for the deal 4 years ago on condition that Nvidia not discriminate against Chinese firms. The Chinese government had approved Nvidia's $7 billion acquisition of the Israeli computer networking equipment maker on condition that included that Mellanox provide information about new products to rivals within 90 days of making them available to Nvidia. Nvidia also agreed that Chinese chip makers would get a chance to make sure their products worked well with Mellanox's technology. Now, I could be misreading this story a little bit, but when I see the export controls being put in place by the United States saying you can't sell any of your advanced AI chips or any of your advanced semiconductors into the Chinese markets, that would interfere with Nvidia sharing this Mellanox stuff and all this technology with the Chinese. And then the Chinese have a law that says you have to share it with us. So it looks like Nvidia is kind of like stuck between two countries that are in the middle of a trade war. One is saying you have to share, another saying you can't share. And Nvidia wants to do business in both countries. They might have to pick one here soon. Now, Nvidia stock is down 2% this morning here, 2.3%, trading at $139.08. It's not a huge decline in Nvidia stock, and this probably isn't the biggest problem facing Nvidia right now. They've also got antitrust probes in the United States and France, but that's now three major economies where Nvidia is under some kind of monopoly investigation, so that's worth keeping an eye on as well. And this story, guys, you'll forgive me for shaking my head here, but I just, this is going to go down in history as just a lesson in what the hell were people thinking. Supermicro stock soars as SMCI delisting fears ease, although these concerns remain. Supermicro stock took another leap higher early Monday on news it had secured an extension with NASDAQ to file its already delayed earnings report. Shares of the AI server maker, which were facing the threat of delisting for failing to comply with the NASDAQ's rules on filing figures, rose 8.7% to $47.75 in pre-market trading on Monday, indicating investor confidence in the company. Good God. Supermicro was granted an exemption to a NASDAQ listing rule, giving it until February 25th next year to file its annual report and results for the quarter ended in September, the company said in a statement on Friday. That said, there are still plenty of questions investors need Supermicro to answer. Its auditor, Ernst & Young, quit in late October, saying it didn't wish to be associated with the financial statements prepared by management. Basically, these guys are liars, sending Supermicro shares to a year low. Since then, a committee appointed by the company said it didn't find any evidence of fraud or misconduct. We investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing. Congratulations for that. It also needs to appoint a new finance chief after an investigating committee recommended the current CFO, David Wiggins, step down. So, yeah, we investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing. And then in the next breath, they said, you got to fire your CFO. I'm sure that makes sense to somebody. Maybe the people buying the stock can explain that one to me. Look, guys, nothing has really changed for Supermicro, right? Their auditor quit and they hired BDO. And then they investigated themselves and found no wrongdoing. And then Nvidia gave them an extension. They're still months late on their filings. They're still being accused of basically being a fraud by a whistleblower lawsuit in California, by the Department of Justice, who's investigating them, and by Ernst & Young, their former auditor, who resigned using some of the strongest language I've ever seen. And yet this company has more than tripled in the last couple of weeks, and it's up 9% this morning, $47.93, up another $4. I guess I've said enough about this one, guys. If you're making money on this stock, if you're buying options on this, congratulations on your gains. You and I both know what's going to happen eventually to this one. We've been down this road before. The last time Supermicro was delisted for doing exactly the same thing, involving exactly the same people that they rehired, it took months, but eventually they got delisted and the stock cratered. So that's coming. But in the meantime, enjoy your gains. And the last one I want to talk about, guys, is this drone story. Keep an eye on this one. This could be a real mess here. More drones spotted across New Jersey, this time at the Jersey Shore. Another wave of drone sightings was reported across the state. And again, guys, these are not these little handheld quadcopters. These things are the size of cars, and they're all over the skies in New Jersey right now. Middletown Mayor Tony Perry tells News 12 New Jersey that on Friday night, half a dozen drones were spotted near Naval Weapons Station Earl, and dozens of people along the Jersey Shore say they got a glimpse of the flying machines Thursday night as well. These sightings occurred in towns like Seaside Heights, Lavallette, Toms River, Point Pleasant Beach, and Tinton Falls, to name a few sightings were previously reported in North and Central Jersey. Sergeant Kevin Fennessy of the Ocean County Sheriff's Department Drone Department says that the department does not have any idea where the drones are coming from or what they're being used for. News 12 first met Fennessy last week while conducting a joint training exercise for Ocean and Monmouth County Sheriff's Departments. Fennessy says Ocean County tracked what was happening up north just in case the drone activity moved south. We're networking with the New Jersey State Police and Office of Homeland Security. Everyone's networking together and to plot where sightings are, to build a map and everything, Fennessy said. There's rules you have to follow. You have to keep them under 400 feet, keep them in your line of sight, register them if they're over a certain weight at the FAA's drone zone. So there's a lot to do with them. Governor Phil Murphy on Wednesday met with various officials to discuss the situation. We are actively monitoring the situation and in close coordination with our federal and law enforcement partners on this matter. There is no known threat to the public at this time, Murphy posted on X. And by the way, guys, just a reminder, in politician speak or bureaucrat language, when they say we are closely monitoring, actively monitoring, it means we are not doing jack shit about it. We have no clue what's going on, but we want to appear competent. And so our wordsmith came up with closely monitoring. And it's not just in New Jersey. Large drones spotted in Philadelphia area as FBI investigates mysterious drone sightings in New Jersey. People in the Philadelphia area are reporting seeing large drones in the sky. This as authorities in New Jersey push for answers on their own mystery drone sightings over the past few weeks. Action News was swarmed by viewers sending videos of drone sightings. Numerous reports were sent to Action News about flying objects in Media and Broomall in Delaware County, as well as in Philadelphia's Mayfair section and in Cherry Hill, Camden County. New Jersey State Police were surveying the drones in Lebanon, Hunterdon County on Saturday night. No one seems to be able to figure out if the drone incidents are connected, who is flying them, or why. The FBI is involved in the situation. Look, guys, it's somebody with deep pockets. These drones are huge, 15 feet across, the size of cars. All right. This is either a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's operating this fleet of large drones all over the Northeast, or it's a state actor. And it appears from the language that's being used that this state actor is not the United States. And so it really looks like you have a state actor who isn't us operating a large fleet of drones in and around our military facilities, and our government doesn't know who they are and what they're doing. And I'm sure that's just nothing to worry about at all. Everything is going to be just fine. I am just a doomer. This is just FUD, and go about your business. I don't worry, guys. They're closely monitoring. They're actively coordinating. I mean, this thing, one day we're going to look back at all this and just smile and laugh, right? Good God, what is going on in the world today, guys? I just want to say thank you so much to Charles G., who says the government knows what's going on. Biden is allowing these drones. Also, no more Zerpenber. Let it crash. It needs to. So as far as allowing these drones, I mean, we could shoot them down if we wanted to, right? I mean, I think we probably have the capacity to track and shoot these things down. That might make the situation worse. You know, the only thing worse than drones overhead is burning drones falling on your house. So maybe that would make things worse. That being said, if we don't know what they're doing and who they are, maybe that's better. Biden allowing them. Yeah, the whole government is. I mean, I wouldn't put this on Biden. I mean, is Biden even awake right now? Let's be honest. It's not him that's allowing it. He's not the shot caller here. He hasn't been for some time. But the government does appear hapless here, like just totally unaware, not in control. What the hell are you doing? I don't know, but good luck to us. No more Zerpenber. I agree. I wish it was no more Zerpenber, Charles, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they're going to do. It's every time. That's their answer every time. They have the same opening. They have the same play. No matter what happens, print more money, lower more rates. And that's not just us. That's everywhere in the world right now. Even Japan, who's still supposed to be tightening, they're still supposed to be just tightening, just beginning their tightening. No, they're still the easiest monetary policy in the world. So it's easy money. The Keynesians rule everywhere, and to a hammer, everything looks like nails. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate the super chat, sir. And I share your your lack of optimism about the situation. And KDM, thank you, sir. Welcome to the Melonheads. I appreciate all the super chat and the support of the channel, sir. You are awesome. Thank you very much. And Brojo, I was about to sign off. You snuck that one in there at the end. Drones are military, possible threats to avoid panic. The simplest answer here is it's our military and they just don't want to know. But if it's our military and they're trying to operate in secret, why do they have flashing lights on them? Why are they like drawing attention to themselves at night? There's a lot about this story that's got me uneasy, to be honest with you. The simple answer is it's probably our military, but why are they operating over the most densely populated part of the country? If the military wanted to test drones without being noticed, we got deserts and mountains and forests you could fly the things over. Why over neighborhoods and all these, Picatinny Arsenal and Naval Station Earl? Why? It doesn't make sense. And a lot of the things that do make sense are pretty scary. So I guess I'll stop speculating here. But yeah, this is it's kind of a spooky story. And the way this story's drifting, they're going to be over my head pretty soon. So maybe I'll have some custom self-taken pictures of these things sooner or later. Seem to be trending in this direction. Thank you, Brojo, for supporting the channel, sir. And thank you, everybody, for having your coffee with the Melonheads this morning. I appreciate that very much. Thank you to my channel members on YouTube and also my magnanimous Melonheads on Patreon for supporting the channel. You guys rock. I got links down below to all that good stuff, should you feel so inclined. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Love you guys. Till next time, live small and dream big.